Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, education lovers. Excited as always to have you joining us this week on Big Ideas in Education. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Doral College, joined as always by Dr. Sarah Boulos from Somerset Academy Schools. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Ryan, and hello, everyone.
So good to see you, Sarah. So good to be chatting with all of our viewers and listeners this week. We've got a couple of fantastic stories to share with everybody as we are getting closer and closer to summer. And I think you have a summer-related story for us, Sarah, right?
I do. Truesdale County Schools in Tennessee is providing a summer learning camp to students going into grades 1 through 8 for the second year in a row. But don't call it summer school, cautions Truesdale County Director of Schools, Clint Satterfield. It is not for students who have failed. It's more learning acceleration. Students will be introduced to state standards and curriculum that they will experience in the fall. It's not remediation, but acceleration, he said. And while working on reading and mathematics are a critical part of the program, which, by the way, boasts over 90% attendance for its 5 weeks of sessions, there's also a considerable amount of time that goes into making sure students are having fun. Each day, students have an hour of free play to ensure that relaxation is also a focus of the program. Middle school assistant principal Landon Gully is serving as the principal over the math program, and elementary teacher Jenna Catherine is serving as the principal over reading. They maintain that part of the success of this program is in fostering positive mindsets and providing small groups for instruction. Gully said, "We cap it at 15 students per class. We engage students in a fun learning environment with engaging activities that help build their confidence. When we're not confident, we feel like we can't and we shut down. And if we have a mindset that we can't, we probably won't." I've had middle school students who participated in the summer learning camp last year tell me that when they walked into school this year, they felt confident enough to raise their hand and answer questions. That is certainly significant. As somebody who's worked with many middle school students, I would say, yes, that is very significant. And I know many schools are offering similar programs this summer. So I think that hearing this balance of academic practice with plenty of fun makes for a recipe for a great summer program.
That is really exciting. And two thoughts come to mind for me when I hear you talk about that program. And one is the fact that I've been reading a lot of studies in the last couple weeks that are really starting to document this notion of a COVID slide that we're seeing, that there is a real measurable impact that the pandemic had on learning gains for students, and a lot of students are playing from behind. So summer programs are useful. And we often talk about summer as a tool for remediation, but as your article notes, it can be acceleration too. But, you know, for one student's remediation and acceleration, it's all just kind of bringing about and fostering learning gains, which is exciting to see. What I love about the idea of a summer enrichment program or summer acceleration that you're talking about there is summer is this rare opportunity that we have as educators to employ models and different delivery methods that and to introduce subjects in a way that we may not be able to regularly introduce during the academic year because of like the strictures of deadlines and standards and things like that. So we have a little bit more flexibility here. We can make learning fun. We can utilize small group instruction and just, you know, make it an even more enjoyable experience so that the students aren't dreading coming to school in the summertime, but they're really getting a lot out of it and having a good time.
I agree with that. I would also say that even though it's, talking about acceleration, I think that sometimes we use certain code words for kids, right? So we're not remediating, we're accelerating you when in essence, it may be the same process. So I would really encourage anyone who's doing a program like this to consider what you're talking about. Consider using maybe some different methods to engage students, use some more project or problem-based learning, get them really involved in a way that maybe you don't have the time or the resources to do during the traditional school year. I also think that when we're talking about students who have been going through the pandemic for the past 2 years, Something that I'm not hearing a lot about, but I think that programs like this can really provide, is not just academic acceleration or opportunities for academic enrichment, but also social opportunities, right? Having students have that opportunity to get together, play together, work together, be in small groups together. I think that can be really valuable. The amount of teachers that I've been working with this year and principals that I've been working with who are saying, I'm having trouble with my first and second graders in a way that I've never had before. I'm having trouble with my kinder students in a way I've never had before. When we're talking about students who missed a significant milestone set of activities when they were in that really tender age of 5, 6, 7, talking with some of my colleagues who are specializing in early childhood saying, we only have a precious few years where we can teach things like phonological awareness or certain empathic skills and certain things that really need to be taught in these years from 4 to 7. And 2 of those years were taken away from us for all intents and purposes, right? So getting students to be able to work together in this social setting and do this academic practice, fun is not just something that we say because it is fun, but social situations are learning tools. Learning is socially constructed. It is very important for us to allow children to learn, to play with each other, and to enjoy themselves, because without that motivation and engagement, nothing else is going to stick.
Yeah. I feel like I'm about to be a killjoy as I say this, but whenever I hear stories about enriching summer programs, always in the back of my head, I'm thinking about funding, how this gets paid for. And I think it's no accident that we're seeing a program like this coming out right now. I mean, I don't know if this was mentioned in the article, but I think American Rescue Plan funds and COVID funds that were provided by the government to states and school districts are allowing these organizations and these government bodies to have more cash than they've had before. And so you're seeing a lot of these programs emerge, whether it's summer programs, whether it's brand new technology in schools. And what I'm seeing a lot of are questions of what happens when this funding dries up? What happens when we get back to kind of standard operating procedure in terms of funding? Are we going to see these kinds of programs continue? I know that a lot of school districts pre-pandemic were cutting summer programs because they couldn't find teachers for them or resources for them. And so hopefully they're here now, and hopefully they're here to stay, because as you noted from that article, there's a lot of value to this kind of enrichment activity.
Yes. So several things that you mentioned, but yes, one thing that you brought up was funding, and it is, excuse me, this is exactly what it's coming from. The funding for this program has been a part of these grants programs as part of COVID recovery. And that is why this is the second year they've been able to do it, because they're using those specific grants. Another thing is, what do we do when these funding sources run out? Something that's also mentioned in the article is that the planning for this program starts in December. And I think that's really critical, because if you wait until the end of the school year to start planning your summer program, you are definitely too late. So starting to look at funding sources and funding opportunities much earlier, maybe even a year in advance, right? Talking about summer, now we're at the end of the 21-22 school year, starting to discuss how we're going to fund summer programs for 22-23, that kind of conversation does start very, very early. But the third thing you mentioned, and it's not something that was really explored in this article, is not being able to find quality staff for these programs. And that is something that I think, more than grant funding and more than just the timing and the planning that goes into it, I think that we're going to see more and more. We have a lot of burnout and a lot of situations where teachers are not motivated to continue working over the summer, and maybe just need that time, need that mental break before the school year starts. And finding qualified, certified teachers to be a part of these summer programs is definitely something that I'm hearing from a lot of my colleagues as being a key reason why they're really struggling with summer programming. Yeah,
I mean, it's a lot hard for a lot of these schools to find qualified personnel for the actual 10-month school year, much less for additional summer programming. But these are valuable programs, and we'd love to see school districts and schools find ways for them to grow right now and beyond when we're have some semblance of being past this pandemic.
Absolutely.
I want to stay in the same theme here, Sarah, and talk about engaging instruction. So specifically within the context of pre-test review sessions. Now,
All right.
for teachers who want their students to have a strong performance on assessments, effective review activities often make a big difference. If you can have a review session that helps reinforce concepts taught, and particularly helps students pick up on concepts where they're still struggling, that can lead to students acing their next big test. And in a recent article in Edutopia, education writer Sarah Gosner provides some helpful advice on how to make your review sessions more engaging or even fun. One type of review session that Ms. Gosner recommends, particularly for math classes, is known as Molly Mistakes. And in Molly Mistakes, the teacher will create a review assignment, such as math problems, and then does the assignment themselves, but does the assignment wrong on purpose. You then have students work in pairs to go through the problems, correcting the teacher's mistakes, and providing feedback. Molly Mistakes allow students to work together to build mastery while allowing teachers to reinforce specific concepts that they want to make sure their students understand. And students certainly love the opportunity to correct their teacher for a change. For another strategy, and I know you're going to like this one, we all have fond memories of this, Sarah, Ms. Gosner recommends a review method that we've probably all experienced at least once in our life, Class Jeopardy. The popular game show format is a great way to reinforce concepts from the class in a way that will surely engage your students. And now in the 21st century here, online apps like Jeopardy Labs allow teachers to create Class Jeopardy boards testing their students on class concepts right on the computers without having to resort to taping a bunch of construction papers to their whiteboards, which I do have very fond memories of. The article, which we will add in the show description, has some other great review ideas as well, but whatever review method you choose, the article recommends that you find the right balance between effectiveness and motivation while building in partner work and student-to-student communication along the way. What do you think, Sarah? Class Jeopardy, Molly Mistakes?
I really like the Molly Mistakes thing. I've never heard of that being called it. I've never heard it being called that. But that is very interesting. I thought you were going to say that, I don't know. I remember a lot of my teachers when I was a student doing the Around the World game. Did you ever play that to review?
Where it's probably one of those things where it had like a different name when I was in school.
Maybe.
Yeah, walk me through it.
One kid would stand up and go, and they would walk around the classroom, stopping at each desk, and they would have a chance to like answer a question, almost like a trivia style. And then if they got it wrong, they had to sit down. And if you could make it all the way around the classroom or around the world, you won some kind of prize. But I have to say, I really like these suggestions a lot better because as someone who loved playing around the world, I loved it because I think I got a lot of the questions right. But if I did not know the answer to the question, it was pretty low stakes for me. I got my question wrong. I stayed in my seat. I moved on, right? 20 something other kids had to participate before I had to deal with it again. So the focus here on partner work is something I'm really enjoying because I hear a lot about small groups, and we all do. We all hear a lot about small groups and how important they are. But I think there's something specifically accountability driven about partners that is really exciting for something like this, because you want to make sure that students are getting that practice and helping each other. And of course, small groups are great, but even smaller, when we're talking about partners, there's a lot of opportunity there for success, for correcting mistakes. I really can see that being extremely effective, and I'm going to recommend that.
It is, and I would say in most of the review activities in this article, partner work is a centerpiece of it, or at least small group work. There was another one in the article, or maybe it was another article I read. I was like just doing a deep dive on these because I got sort of obsessed with them and researching for this. There was another type of review called quick fire, which is a nice one because you can do it at the start of any class, basically, and it takes like 2 minutes, where an instructor at the start of the class session will say quick fire and will basically introduce a concept to all the students, like what are Locke's 3 philosophies on government. And so you turn to the student next to you and you discuss the concept generally so that both of you are prepared for what's going to happen next. And then what happens next is the teacher can then randomly call on students to ask specific questions about that topic. But the students are coming prepared because obviously, 1, they've studied throughout the class for this, but 2, they had the opportunity to interact with one of their classmates right beforehand and do a quick review session to bolster their knowledge right before the checking for understanding.
Yeah. Anytime that they get that immediate opportunity to discuss, I think it's really important.
Yeah.
I can definitely see a teacher who is trying to employ some of these strategies and saying, well, what do I do if, if that we always had issues with in group work? What if one student is not participating, right? Not bringing to the partnership what they should. And I'm wondering if the article has any specific recommendations for that.
I will ensure that the article, we're going to put the article in the show description, but what the article does reinforce throughout is that the teacher cannot be a passive observer in this, right? The review session, for one thing, is only as good as the instruction that the teacher is bringing to bear throughout the class. Like, this isn't just something where you can kind of leave the students out in the ocean swimming by themselves.
Right.
And two, if you are identifying students that are not pulling their weight or are struggling, that's the time where you want to kind of bring in and do that specialized intervention. But the nice thing is, because they're already paired off in groups, it allows for an easier opportunity for a teacher to go around the room and provide individualized instruction to meet the needs of that student, because it's easier to diagnose if a student is struggling there, because you're basically having another student help you diagnose it, which is a lot better than like the 1 through 5 checking for understanding with your hands that we all know and love.
Yeah.
Well, we encourage you all to check out our articles. They're in the show description. If you have any advice on review sessions that are particularly useful in your classroom, we would encourage you to tweet at us at Academica Media with the hashtag BigIdeasInEducation so we can keep the conversation going. It's been a real treat hanging out with everybody this week. It's been a real treat hanging out with you, Sarah.
Thanks. Same to you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.